Sam Carter stared at the acceptance letter on his tablet screen for the 5th time. He had to make sure it was real. The Galactic Medical Exchange Program had selected him, a human, to study at the Interstellar Medical Academy. No human had ever been admitted before. They actually accepted me, Sam whispered to himself. His small apartment in Chicago seemed even smaller now as his mind raced with thoughts of distant stars and alien species. Humans were classified as Deathworlders by the Galactic Council, creatures from a high-gravity, harsh climate planet with extreme biological adaptations. Most aliens found humans terrifying. They thought of Earth as a nightmare world where everything could kill you, where animals ate each other, and where the dominant species had evolved to survive it all. Sam packed his bags carefully. The program guidelines listed what he could bring. No weapons, of course. That made Sam smile. Aliens thought almost everything humans carried could be a weapon. They weren't entirely wrong. 3 weeks later, Sam stood in the massive docking bay of the Interstellar Medical Academy. The space station orbited the neutral world of Centauri Prime. It was enormous, shaped like a giant wheel with spokes extending from a central hub. Each section housed different gravity and atmosphere settings for the dozens of species that studied there. Human Carter, a mechanical voice spoke from a floating orb beside him. Please follow the guide light to your orientation. A small blue light appeared and moved slowly down the corridor. Sam followed, trying not to stare at the strange beings around him. Some floated in bubbles of liquid. Others crawled along the walls. Many walked on 2, 4, or more legs. They all seemed to notice him, their eye stalks, sensory clusters, or visual organs tracking his movement. The blue light led Sam to a large circular room where about 20 alien students waited. As he entered, several moved away slightly. Others made what Sam guessed were their species' equivalent of nervous gestures. "Ah, our human participant has arrived," said a tall blue-skinned being with 4 arms. "I am Professor Ziv Toril, head of Xenophysiology. Welcome to the Academy, Sam Carter." The professor's standard galactic was perfect, though the sounds came from vibrating membranes on the sides of his neck rather than a mouth. "Thank you, Professor. I'm honored to be here," Sam replied, trying to remember not to show his teeth when smiling. Most species saw exposed teeth as a threat. "Students, please introduce yourselves to Student Carter," the professor said. A beautiful crystalline being that reminded Sam of walking glass sculpture stepped forward first. Light refracted through her transparent body, creating rainbow patterns on the floor. "I am Lyri of the Lumidian Collective," she said in a voice like wind chimes. "I specialize in regenerative medicine." Next came a blob of shifting purple gel that formed a speaking appendage. "Vex of Trell, biochemical analysis." The appendage melted back into its body when done. A green humanoid with bark-like skin and leaves instead of hair bowed slightly. Kaz from the Florian Groves. Plant-based treatments and herbal medicine. Several more aliens introduced themselves, each more strange than the last. Some Sam couldn't even tell which part was talking. The last to step forward was a tall, thin alien with silvery skin and large black eyes. "Next vu of the Altarian medical clan," he said coldly. "I question the wisdom of admitting a Deathworlder to our academy. Your species still practices cutting flesh and setting bones by force, do you not?" The room went silent. Professor Ziv Toril's neck membranes fluttered in what Sam guessed was disapproval. "Student next vu, all accepted students have met our requirements. Different evolutionary paths lead to different medical approaches, which is why this exchange exists." Sam nodded respectfully to next vu. "I look forward to learning from all of you. That's why I'm here, to share knowledge and learn new ways to heal." The professor guided Sam to his quarters after orientation. "Do not mind next vu," he said quietly. "Many have never met a human before. They know only stories." "What kind of stories?" Sam asked. Professor Ziv Toril's large eyes blinked slowly. "That humans can survive injuries that would kill most species. That you continue fighting even when damaged. That your bodies repair themselves in ways we find unsettling. Given time, they will see beyond these stories. Sam nodded, wondering what exactly he had gotten himself into. 2 weeks into the program, Sam felt like he was swimming against a strong current. The alien medical practices at the academy confused him. Their techniques seemed so slow and gentle compared to what he had learned on Earth. Today's class focused on trauma care. Professor Ziv Toril moved his forearms gracefully as he demonstrated a Xenovian healing technique on a practice dummy. Notice how the energy field gently encourages cell regrowth, the professor said. The key is patience. Some injuries may take several cycles to heal properly. Sam raised his hand. Professor, what if the patient is losing blood quickly? On Earth, we would first stop the bleeding, then worry about proper healing. The classroom went silent. Several students made gestures of shock. An interesting question, Student Carter, Professor Ziv Toril said carefully. Different species have different priorities in emergency care. For many galactic species, aggressive intervention causes more harm than the original injury. Nextvu made a sound like a snort. Typical Deathworlder thinking, always rushing to cut and stitch and force the body. Sam tried to stay calm. Our methods developed because they save lives. Humans can lose a third of their blood volume and survive with proper treatment. The crystalline student Leary made a tinkling sound of distress. You lose parts of yourselves regularly. How horrible. It's not horrible, it's just different, Sam said. Our bodies are built to handle damage and recover. After class, Sam sat alone in the academy cafeteria. The food was safe for human consumption but bland. He missed Earth spices almost as much as he missed being understood. The gelatinous student Vex approached, his body rippling in what Sam had learned was curiosity. May I join you? Vex asked, forming a speaking appendage. Sure, Sam replied, glad for the company. Vex settled into a shape resembling a chair opposite Sam. I have questions about humans, if you don't mind. Our database has limited information. Sam smiled slightly, remembering to keep his teeth covered. Ask away. Is it true that humans deliberately break and reset bones that haven't healed correctly? Yes, Sam said. If a bone heals wrong, it can cause pain and problems later. Sometimes breaking it again is the best option. Vex's entire body shuddered. And humans voluntarily allow this. We use pain medication, but yes, short-term pain for long-term health makes sense to us. Vex formed several eyes that blinked rapidly. Fascinating. And your immune system actually attacks invaders. Most species develop symbiotic relationships with microbes. Our immune system is like an army, Sam explained. It identifies threats and eliminates them. An internal war, Vex said, his color darkening slightly. No wonder Deathworlders think differently. The plant-like student Kaz joined them, his leaf hair rustling softly. I overheard. We Florians find humans puzzling too. You keep trying to save individuals with extreme measures. We focus on the survival of the collective. Sam leaned forward. Every human life has value. We fight for each patient, even when recovery seems impossible. Kaz asked. Especially then, Sam said. Humans have survived things that should have killed them. We've woken from comas after years. We've recovered from massive trauma. We don't give up easily. This explains your medicine, Vex said thoughtfully. It reflects your world and biology. Later that week, in the practical lab, students worked in small groups. Sam, Leary, Vex, and Kaz shared a station, analyzing tissue samples from different species. Nextvu worked at the next station with 3 other students. He kept giving Sam suspicious looks. I don't understand how you damaged your hand, Leary said suddenly, her crystalline body catching the light as she turned to Sam. Sam looked down at the small scar across his knuckles. Oh, this. I broke a window to get someone out of a burning car. It happened years ago. The 3 aliens stared at him. You broke solid material with your body. Leary asked in disbelief. You entered fire, Kaz added, his leaves curling slightly. To save someone you didn't know. Vex finished. Sam nodded, not understanding their surprise. Anyone would have done the same. No, Vex said quietly. They wouldn't. Now I understand why the professor says humans are both terrifying and remarkable. A month into the program, Professor Zivtoril organized a field trip to the Academy's botanical gardens. The massive dome housed plants from hundreds of worlds, carefully maintained in their native environments. Today we study medicinal flora, the professor announced as the students gathered at the entrance. Many healing techniques began with plant compounds. Each group will collect samples from your assigned section. Sam was grouped with Lyri, Vex, and Kaz. Nexvu smirked when he saw this arrangement. The human with the most fragile students. Nexvu said loudly. An interesting choice, Professor. Professor Zivtoril's neck membranes fluttered in annoyance. The groups were selected to balance different skills. Student Nexvu. The botanical garden was even more impressive inside. Floating platforms allowed access to plants growing at different heights. Force fields kept incompatible environments separate while allowing students to pass through. Sam's group was assigned to study high-gravity plant adaptations. They boarded a platform that would take them to an enclosed section, simulating the conditions of heavy worlds. This should be comfortable for you, Deathworlder, Vex said, his gelatinous body shifting nervously as they ascended. Sam smiled. Earth's gravity is moderate compared to some planets. This will be heavy even for me. Their platform reached the desired height and stopped next to a cluster of thick-trunked trees with dense, heavy fruits. These are Dravian healing pods, Kaz explained, his plant knowledge clearly useful here. Their enzymes can repair cellular damage in most carbon-based life forms. Lyri's crystalline body sparkled as she recorded detailed scans of the pods. The molecular structure is fascinating. It might be adaptable for crystalline beings too. Sam was taking notes when he felt a slight vibration through the platform. He looked down at his feet. Did anyone else feel that? He asked. Vex formed a sensory appendage. I detect no abnormalities. The vibration came again, stronger this time. Sam's instincts kicked in. Something's wrong with the platform, he said urgently. We should get off. The safety systems would alert us if... Kaz began. A loud mechanical groan cut him off. The platform lurched violently to one side. Move to the edge, Sam shouted, grabbing his supply bag. We need to reach that maintenance walkway. Before anyone could move, the anti-gravity system failed completely. With a sickening drop, the platform began to fall. Sam reacted instantly. He grabbed Kaz's bark-like arm and pulled him toward the closest stable surface, a thick branch of the Dravian tree. Vex, being amorphous, simply flowed himself over to safety. But Lyri was at the far edge of the platform. As it tilted further, she began to slide toward the edge. Her crystalline legs couldn't find traction on the smooth surface. Lyri, Sam yelled. The platform crashed into a collection of specimen containers 20 feet below. The sound of breaking glass and bending metal echoed through the garden dome. Alarms began to wail. Sam looked down from the branch where he and Kaz had found safety. The platform had destroyed several rare plant displays. Amid the wreckage, he saw something sparkling. Pieces of Lyri. Without hesitation, Sam lowered himself from the branch and dropped the remaining distance. He landed hard but rolled to absorb the impact. Sam, wait, Kaz called from above. Medical drones will respond. Sam ignored him, rushing to where Lyri lay. Her crystalline body was fractured in several places. Clear fluid, what passed for her blood, was leaking from the cracks. She made faint tinkling sounds that Sam recognized as signs of distress. Hold on, Lyri, Sam said, kneeling beside her. He opened his supply bag and pulled out his personal human first aid kit. From across the garden, he heard shouts and the sound of people approaching. But they were far away in another section. It would take time for help to arrive. Lyri's clear fluid was pooling beneath her. Sam knew from xenobiology class that Lumidians couldn't survive significant fluid loss. Their crystalline matrix would destabilize. "I have to act now," Sam muttered, his medical training taking over. Other students who had been working nearby gathered at a safe distance, watching in horror as the human bent over the broken form of Lyri. "What is the Deathworlder doing to her?" someone whispered. Sam didn't hear them. He was completely focused on saving his friend's life. Sam assessed Lyri's injuries quickly. Her crystalline body had 3 major cracks and several smaller ones. The clear fluid that kept her alive was leaking out fast. "Lyri, can you hear me?" Sam asked, keeping his voice calm. A weak tinkling sound came from her. Sam took it as a yes. "I'm going to help you, but my methods might seem strange. Do you trust me?" Another faint sound, slightly stronger this time. Sam pulled a roll of emergency sealant from his kit. It was designed for human wounds, but he hoped it would work on Lyri's crystalline surface. He began applying it to the largest crack first. "He's putting something on her," gasped one of the watching students. "Is he trying to glue her together?" another asked in horror. Vex had flowed down from safety and approached cautiously. "What are you doing, Sam?" "Stopping the fluid loss first," Sam explained, not looking up. "It's like blood loss in humans. If she loses too much, she'll die before help arrives." Sam's hands worked quickly, spreading the sealant along Lyri's cracks. The substance hardened on contact, creating a temporary barrier. Next, Sam pulled out a compression bandage. He gently wrapped it around Lyri's midsection, where the worst damage was. "This will hold her together and prevent the cracks from getting worse," he told Vex. The watching aliens murmured in shock. In their medical traditions, touching an injured person so directly was considered harmful. Their methods involved energy fields, cellular encouragement, and gentle healing waves. Sam's hands-on approach seemed invasive and brutal. "He's binding her," someone shouted. "Stop him." Sam ignored them. Lyri needed more than just external repairs. He knew from his studies that Lumidians had a central cluster that functioned like a heart and brain combined. If it started to crystallize from fluid loss, she would die. He pulled a small vial from his kit, containing a fluid replacement solution. "This is a universal electrolyte formula," he explained to Vex. "It's not perfect for her biology, but it should help stabilize her until medical staff arrive." "How will you administer it?" Vex asked, forming worried eyes all over his body. Sam pulled out a small injector. "I need to find her fluid intake point." This caused a new wave of gasps from the onlookers. In most galactic species, direct injection was seen as a primitive barbaric practice. "You can't puncture her," cried a hovering insectoid student. "She has an emergency intake valve," Kaz said, having climbed down to join them. "All Lumidians do." He pointed to a small star-shaped formation near what would be Lyri's shoulder. Sam nodded gratefully and positioned the injector at the valve. With careful pressure, he delivered the solution. Almost immediately, Lyri's color improved slightly. "Next, immobilization," Sam said, mostly to himself. He pulled out expandable splint rods from his kit and began placing them along Lyri's fractured limbs. "These will prevent further damage during transport," he explained. By now, a small crowd had gathered, watching in a mixture of horror and fascination as the human worked. Nexvu pushed his way to the front. "Stop this primitive brutality," he shouted. "You're making it worse." "No, he's not," Vex said, surprising everyone. "Her color is improving. The fluid leakage has slowed." Sam checked Lyri's vital signs using his scanner. "She's stabilizing, but she needs professional care as soon as possible." Just then, Professor Ziv Toril arrived with the medical response team. He took in the scene. Sam kneeling beside the bandaged and splinted Lyri, surrounded by shocked students. "What happened here?" the professor demanded. "The platform failed," Sam explained quickly. "Lyri was badly injured. I applied emergency first aid to stabilize her until help arrived." The medical team moved in with their equipment. One of them, a senior Xenovian healer, scanned Lyri thoroughly. "Her matrix integrity is at 58%, the healer announced. "But it's holding steady." The healer looked at Sam with all four eyes. "Without immediate stabilization, she would have destabilized completely before our arrival." Professor Ziv Toral's neck membranes fluttered in what Sam now recognized as surprise. "You saved her life, Student Carter," the professor said quietly. As the medical team carefully loaded Lyri onto a hover stretcher, Sam finally noticed his hands were shaking. The adrenaline was wearing off. "I just did what anyone would do," he said. "No," Professor Ziv Toral replied. "What you did is uniquely human. And today, that was exactly what was needed." 3 days after the accident, Sam sat nervously outside the Academy's disciplinary chamber. The gleaming doors reflected his worried face back at him. Vex oozed up beside him, forming a rough approximation of a humanoid shape. "They cannot punish you for saving a life," the gelatinous alien said. "Different cultures have different views on proper medical care," Sam replied. "I violated dozens of their protocols." The doors slid open. A small hovering drone emerged. "Student Carter, the board will see you now," it announced in a flat voice. Sam stood, straightened his uniform, and entered the chamber. Inside, 7 senior faculty members sat at a curved table. Professor Ziv Toral was among them, his 4 arms folded in what Sam had learned was a neutral posture. At another table sat Next View, looking smug. "Student Sam Carter of Earth," began the head of the board, an ancient turtle-like being named Director Sham. "You are called here regarding the incident in the botanical gardens." Sam stood straight, hands at his sides. "Yes, Director. Student Next View has filed a formal complaint against your actions." Director Sham gestured to Next View. "He may present his concerns." Next View rose, his silvery skin gleaming under the lights. "Honored faculty, the human violated every principle of proper medical ethics during the accident. He physically handled an injured Lamidian with bare hands. He applied adhesive substances to her crystalline matrix. He wrapped restrictive materials around her form. He even injected foreign substances into her system." The faculty murmured among themselves. It didn't sound good when listed that way. "These primitive techniques reflect the barbaric nature of Deathworlder medicine," Next View continued. "Such methods endanger our students and contradict everything this academy teaches about proper, respectful healing. I request the humans' immediate removal from the program." Director Sham nodded gravely. "Thank you, Student Next View." He turned to Sam. "Student Carter, how do you respond to these accusations?" Sam took a deep breath. "Everything Student Next View said is factually correct. I did all those things." More murmurs from the faculty. "However," Sam continued, "I acted based on human emergency medical training, adapted for Lyri's physiology. Without immediate intervention, she would have lost critical fluids before the medical team arrived. Sometimes direct action is necessary to preserve life." Director Sham's ancient eyes studied Sam. "And yet our medical philosophy teaches minimal intervention, gentle encouragement of natural healing. Why disregard our approach?" "With respect, Director, different environments create different medical needs," Sam said. "On Earth, we often don't have time for gentle approaches in emergencies. We've developed methods that seem harsh but save lives when minutes matter." The chamber doors suddenly opened. To everyone's surprise, Lyri entered, her crystalline body showing faint repair lines but otherwise whole. "I wish to speak," she said, her voice like wind chimes. Director Sham seemed startled but nodded. "Student Lyri, we welcome your input." Lyri moved to stand beside Sam. "I owe my life to Student Carter. The medical staff told me that without his emergency treatment, my matrix would have destabilized beyond repair before help arrived." She turned slightly, light refracting through her body. "His methods seemed strange and frightening to our witnesses, but they were precisely what my condition required. The sealant prevented critical fluid loss. The compression bandage held my fractures stable. The fluid replacement prevented crystallization of my central cluster. Professor Zivtoril spoke for the first time. I have reviewed the medical reports. The staff confirms that student Leary would not have survived without immediate intervention. Student Carter's techniques, while unorthodox by our standards, were effectively adapted to Lumidian physiology. Next view stood again. But the principles. Principles that cannot bend may break. Professor Zivtoril interrupted. As medical professionals, our highest duty is to preserve life, not merely adhere to tradition. Director Sham was silent for a long moment. Student Carter acted to save a life, using knowledge from his world adapted to our needs. This academy exists to exchange medical knowledge between worlds. It would be hypocritical to punish him for doing exactly that. He looked around the room. The complaint is dismissed. Furthermore, I believe this incident has valuable lessons for all our students about different approaches to emergency care. Next Vu's face darkened with anger, but he said nothing more. As they left the chamber, Leary made a soft tinkling sound that Sam had come to recognize as laughter. "You should see your face," she said. "Did you really think they would expel you for saving me?" Word spread quickly through the academy about the human who saved a Lumidian with Deathworlder first aid. Wherever Sam went, students and faculty watched him with new interest. Some still kept their distance, but others approached with curious questions. 2 weeks after the hearing, Professor Zivtoril called Sam to his office. "Student Carter, I have a proposal for you," the professor said, gesturing for Sam to sit. "Several students have expressed interest in learning about human emergency response techniques." Sam raised his eyebrows. "Really? I thought most found our methods disturbing." "They do," Professor Zivtoril said, his neck membranes fluttering with amusement. "But Leary's recovery has made them reconsider their views. The Academy Board has approved a special seminar series on human first aid principles, if you are willing to teach it." Sam sat up straighter. "I'd be honored, Professor." The first seminar was scheduled for the following week. Sam expected only a few students to attend. He was shocked when he entered the small lecture hall to find nearly 30 aliens waiting. Leary, Vex, and Kaz sat in the front row. Even more surprising, Sam spotted several faculty members at the back of the room. "Welcome to Introduction to Human Emergency Response," Sam began, trying to hide his nervousness. "Today we'll cover the basic principles that guide our approach to medical emergencies." Sam displayed images showing human first aid techniques. He explained the concepts that seemed so natural to him, but alien to his audience. "In emergencies, humans follow a simple priority system," he explained. "First, ensure your own safety. You can't help others if you become injured too." Several students took notes, their various appendages working recording devices. "Second, check for life-threatening conditions and address them immediately. We use the acronym ABC: airway, breathing, circulation." Sam demonstrated how to check if someone was breathing, how to clear a blocked airway, and how to stop severe bleeding. When he showed a video of chest compressions for cardiac arrest, several students made sounds of distress. "You physically compress the chest cavity," asked a hovering student with delicate wings. "Doesn't that cause more damage?" "It can," Sam admitted. "CPR often breaks ribs, but without blood circulation, brain death occurs in minutes. A few broken ribs is a small price for survival." The alien students exchanged looks of shock and fascination. "Human medicine accepts causing some harm to prevent greater harm," Sam continued. "It's a balance we must constantly evaluate." After the lecture, Vex approached. "Your medical philosophy is fascinating," the amorphous alien said. "It reflects your harsh world, practical, direct, and focused on survival at any cost." "Not at any cost," Sam corrected. "We value quality of life too. But in emergencies, we focus on keeping people alive first." Over the next few weeks, attendance at Sam's seminars grew. Students practiced bandaging techniques on each other, learned how to improvise splints, and studied the principles of triage. Some techniques were impossible for certain species. The plant-like Florians couldn't apply pressure bandages with their delicate vine fingers. The insectoid students couldn't perform chest compressions without damaging their exoskeletons. But they adapted. Vex discovered his gelatinous body could form perfect pressure bandages. Kaz found his flexible vines were ideal for securing splints. During the fourth seminar, Professor Ziv Toril joined the class. He observed as Sam taught how to recognize and respond to shock. "Notice how I position the patient with legs elevated," Sam demonstrated on a volunteer. "This helps maintain blood flow to vital organs." After class, the professor stayed behind. "You've created something valuable, Student Carter," he said. "Students are learning not just techniques, but a new way of thinking about emergency care." "Thank you, Professor," Sam replied. "They're teaching me too." Vex showed me how his species can sense chemical imbalances through touch. That's something humans can't do. Professor Ziv Toril's 4 eyes blinked slowly. This exchange of knowledge is exactly what the Academy was created for. Different evolutionary paths have given us different medical strengths. Together, we can save more lives than any one approach alone. Even Nexvu had begun attending the seminars, though he sat at the back and rarely spoke. But Sam noticed the Altarian watching closely, taking detailed notes. Perhaps, Sam thought, even the greatest skeptics can learn something from Deathworlders after all. 6 months after the accident in the Botanical Gardens, the Academy had changed. Sam's emergency response seminars had become one of the most popular elective courses. Students from all species attended, learning to adapt human techniques to their various physiologies. Sam sat in the Academy cafeteria with Leary, Vex, and Kaz. They had become not just classmates, but close friends. "I received my assignment for next term's practical rotation," Leary said, her crystalline body catching the light. "Emergency response unit." "That's perfect for you," Sam replied. "You've become really good at quick decision-making." "A skill I learned from you, Deathworlder," she said with a tinkling laugh. The Academy's alert system suddenly activated. A calm voice spoke over the communication system. "All senior medical students and available staff report to Docking Bay 3. Incoming passenger shuttle with multiple injuries." This is not a drill. Sam and his friends exchanged quick glances before rushing toward the docking bays. When they arrived, Professor Ziv Toril was already organizing response teams. A shuttle experienced catastrophic system failure during docking. The professor explained quickly. "We have 22 passengers, multiple species, various injuries. Teams of 4, mixed specialties. Carter, Leary, Vex, Kaz. You're with me," the professor continued. "We'll take the first wave of critical patients." The damaged shuttle limped into the docking bay, smoke pouring from its engines. Emergency force fields contained the worst of it as the doors opened. The scene inside was chaos. Passengers of various species lay injured throughout the cabin. Some were unconscious. Others called for help in different languages. Sam assessed the situation quickly, just as he'd been taught on Earth and had taught others at the Academy. "Triage first," he said to his team. "Identify whom needs immediate care." Professor Ziv Toril nodded in agreement. "Excellent, Student Carter. Lead the first response." Sam moved through the shuttle, checking each passenger briefly. Vex, a Trell passenger by the rear bulkhead, is showing signs of chemical imbalance. That's your specialty. Vex flowed quickly to the injured Trell, extending sensory appendages to assess the exact nature of the imbalance. Leary, crystalline passenger with matrix fractures near the front. Use your regenerative techniques. Leary moved to help the injured being, who was similar to her own species. Kaz, several passengers are showing signs of toxin exposure from the smoke. Your plant-based detoxification methods would help. Sam himself knelt beside a human passenger with a serious leg wound. The woman was losing blood quickly. "I'm a medical student," Sam told her calmly. "I'm going to help you." He applied a tourniquet and injected a clotting agent, quickly stopping the blood loss. Across the shuttle, other teams worked on more patients. Sam noticed Nexvu carefully splinting an injured limb, using the technique Sam had taught in his seminar. For the next 2 hours, they worked tirelessly. stabilizing patients, and transporting them to the Academy's medical center. They faced challenges with each species requiring different treatments. When the last patient had been moved, Professor Ziv Toril gathered the response teams. "Excellent work, everyone. All passengers are stable. No lives lost." The professor turned to Sam. "Student Carter, your leadership and quick assessment saved many lives today. But even more importantly, the combination of techniques used by your team demonstrated the best of what this academy stands for." 2 weeks later, the academy held a special ceremony. Director Shams stood before the assembled students and faculty. "Today we announce a new required course for all medical students," the ancient turtle-like alien said. "Multispecies Emergency Response. This course will combine approaches from all worlds, acknowledging that different medical traditions have valuable lessons to offer." Director Sham raised one gnarled hand toward Sam. "Student Carter will serve as a co-instructor for this course, alongside Professor Ziv Toril." Applause filled the hall. Even Nexbu joined in. Later, Sam stood by a viewport, looking out at the stars. Lyri joined him. "Are you thinking about Earth?" she asked. "A little," Sam admitted. "I wondered if I could really make a difference here." "You've changed the Academy's understanding of medicine," Lyri said. "Not by rejecting our ways, but by showing how different approaches can work together." "That's what medicine should be," Sam replied. "Not about whose techniques are better, but about saving lives using the best of all worlds." "A very Deathworlder thing to say," Lyri said with a tinkling laugh. "Practical and to the point." Sam smiled. Maybe being a Deathworlder isn't so bad after all.